I want to follow up on a line of questioning that you began with Senator Yaw about the survey. And my understanding is that South Central farmers are going to be encouraged to report conservation practices. And I have to tell you, I was thrilled that farm operators in my district in York County, as well as farmers in Lancaster, Franklin, and Adams counties, will have a chance to highlight what steps they have taken to protect and enhance water quality in our local streams and the Chesapeake Bay. And I understand it's a confidential survey, and it's being administered by the Penn State Survey Research Center, and they're going to mail that survey out to farmers in the 4 counties and try to get them to participate. So farmers are going to have the option of filling out old school, a paper version, or taking the survey online. And I understand that you would like everyone to submit their responses by April 1st. Is that correct?
Sure, that's right. You're very well informed about it.
So, you know, you talked earlier about a culture of stewardship, and I think you and I probably agree, as does, I'm sure, Senator Yaw, that this survey is really important because many of the conservation practices that farmers have implemented over the years, you know, I can tell you in York County and probably other counties along the Susquehanna River watershed, they're not being accounted for in tracking the progress being made toward meeting priority water quality goals, including cleaning up the Chesapeake Bay. So what can we do to help you push this out? Because when you spoke earlier about the numbers you sent out, about 20,000, 7,000 responded, I think the greater response we have, the better data we'll have. And, you know, with this threat of lawsuit by Maryland and, you know, constantly looking at imposing really onerous measures on our farmers, I think it's going to be really helpful to see those findings because I think they're going to show that good things are happening. So how can we help you and support you in this effort, and when can we expect to see the findings posted?
Right, well, yes, last time we had 7,000 out of 20. People thought that was pretty good that, you know, surveys go to get 30% plus participation was quite high. But of course we want and there was a lot of question about how much could we extrapolate from that 30% to everybody else, and that's, we have some statistical arguments for that, but still the best thing to do is get as many people as possible to complete the survey. And as I said last time, we found that if anything, people were a bit modest about the claims they made when we found that they underreported some practices. So the best thing I think you could do is if everybody could encourage their local farm community in your districts to complete the survey. You can assure them it will be kept confidential. That one of the reasons we took on that job the last time was because we wouldn't be susceptible to Freedom of Information Act. And in fact, one of the things I was enthusiastic about doing, careful about doing, is make sure it was done in the context of a research project, which gave us additional protection legally against Freedom of Information Act. We would try to do the same thing again. So I think to be able to contact them and assure them nobody's going to come to their farm afterwards and say, we've got this data on you now. We're going out of our way to make sure that's not an issue, but also that the best thing they can do to help support Pennsylvania's case and give a fair understanding of how the Bay model is predicting things is to complete the surveys and get them back to us. And it'll take, if we're lucky and they come back with lots of responses, it'll take a few months for the survey center to get through them all. But last time around, I think our turnaround was on the order of a couple of months.
Well, I certainly look forward to seeing the results of your work. So thank you for taking that on. I was reading in your 2018 annual report to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, on page 4 of that, you allude to the work being done testing the repellency and toxicity of natural compounds on ticks.
Sorry, natural compounds on?
The repellency and toxicity of natural compounds on ticks.
On ticks, yes.
Yes. And we hear from so many constituents about you know, chronic and disabling effects often associated with the diagnosis of tick-carried Lyme disease. Can
Yeah.
you share with us some of the results from that testing? There's concern here that we've not really done enough in terms of better testing to determine if a person has Lyme's disease, as well as the best course of treatment. And of course, prevention is really key. If we can stop someone from being bitten, and we can prevent them from acquiring Lyme's disease, those other concerns are less important.
Sure,
So-
I'm not familiar with the results of those tests, but I'll try to find out about them. We've also we're not really in a position on the medical side, but we do try to encourage people to check, in our extension literature, to check themselves over, because transmission of Lyme disease doesn't occur immediately, so they've got time to get it off. We try to warn people about symptoms. But one of the things I'm trying to do in the college is we'd like to recruit a person in vector biology, particularly focuses on ticks and mosquito-borne diseases in Pennsylvania. And there is a literature, I've been working with colleagues in the entomology department and also in ecosystem science and management. There is a literature about controlled burns, suppressing tick populations. The controlled burns are also useful for managing weed populations and other things. We recently acquired a new faculty member who worked a lot research on controlled burns in the western United States. So one of the things I'm also interested in is see if we can look at various ways to manage habitat to reduce tick populations. So there's something called Chinese barberry, or Japanese barberry, and it's a favored host. Ticks tend to hang around, probably because mice feed on the fruit. But the habitat is also moist, so survival of juvenile ticks is high. And there's some literature that if you can control this weed, you'll suppress tick population by fire. My aspiration is so you can really demonstrate that. It would open the case for looking at classical biological control of the weed to try to suppress it across Pennsylvania much more widely than you could do by controlled burns. But I think an underexplored part of the problem is to see what we can do to manage habitat to reduce ticks and tick-borne diseases. And in principle, if we reduce tick populations, the percentage of them carrying diseases might drop off as well, including worrying about some of the other new diseases that are turning up, like Powassan virus and so forth, were particularly dangerous.
We'll appreciate that work. Look forward to hearing more about those efforts, and certainly prevention is a really good thing.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's one of those areas where we'd love to get the resources to recruit and hire somebody to work in that area. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.